Well, I don't think that any party would want to do reforms and then lose power,
Yeah.
you know.
But some are
you
clearly
just
not
have
going to,
to
you're going to
do
pay a price, right? Sometimes.
Obviously. I mean, or not, we wouldn't have touched on the subsidies.
Parti Keadilan Rakyat emerged from a protest movement after the dramatic sacking of then Finance and Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim by Tun Mahathir way back in 1998. There are many dates suggested for its official formation of the People's Justice Party, but there's no doubt that this party is one very tied to its leader who has been jailed twice. As it celebrates its 25th anniversary this year, we take a look at its core values, political successes including failures, and its future. Joining me is PKR's Vice President Nik Nazmi, Nik Ahmad, who is also, of course, Minister of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability. Thank you for joining us this morning, and congratulations on the upcoming 25th anniversary of the party. I think there's going to be a special convention very soon to celebrate, but I want to start by asking if being in power has been a challenge for PKR. You've got, 18 parties in this coalition government after being in opposition for all those years except for that brief period post-GE 14.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's also important to put it into context. Yes, we emerged from the streets. I think it was Anwar who famously said we were not born in the palace. We were born on the streets. And all of us went through jailings of various degrees, prosecution, and all that. But I think, my friends like to remind me, when I first won elections in 2008, I immediately stepped into the Selangor state government. And for me, it was actually that, 33 months, when we lost power after Sheraton, that I was opposition. I was truly opposition. Right, so I think so it's not like it's been a sudden like from 20 over years of being in opposition and suddenly we are in government.
Power.
So we have been in various stages. Obviously now we are playing a leading role in the government. We have Anwar Ibrahim as Prime Minister. Definitely, the level of power that we hold today is greater than before, definitely.
Okay.
And yes, obviously there are things that are different.
Has it been tough? It's been a tough 2 years? Well, almost 2 years.
Well, I would say it is tough, but it's a tough that we want, right? It's you want. I always remind my supporters that we are tested with difficulty and we are tested with power.
Okay, so at the same time, do you think that too many compromises have been made to stay in power? Because I see many previous supporters unhappy with the obvious many acquittals, discharges of alleged corrupt politicians, or even the reduction in Dato Sri Najib Razak's jail time and fine. After all, the party is called the People's Justice Party, but is justice lacking?
No, if what I can say is that, for example, Datuk Sri Najib's case, he was not acquitted, right? There was the lessening of the sentencing and penalty for him, but he was not acquitted. I think overall, yes, it's not an easy government to run.
Yeah.
This is the first post-election coalition government. It has never happened before at the federal level. We were up against Barisan Nasional, we were up against GPS, we were up against GRS during 2022. Right, but the verdict was such that no one could form a majority. PH had the biggest bloc, and for the sake of the country, after what we went through, we decided to form this government. So I would say that we have core principles. We even in forming the government, it was not a vacuum.
Okay.
Unlike the post-Sheraton government, for example, it was like power for power's sake.
But is there a line that is drawn in the sand then?
Yes,
when it
there
comes
is
to
a line.
PKR?
Yes, there is a line.
What is that line?
I think, for us, we believe in rule of law, we believe in multiracialism, we believe in progressive values. But I also think that we also need to acknowledge that if you saw in the 2022 elections, you saw in the 6 state elections, we need to work harder with regards to making inroads into the Malay vote. We have even started to, lose out in urban Malay seats, which used to be our bastion. So what I think is the challenge is obviously, not an issue of principles per se, but policies and communication. What do we do first? What's the priority? And how do we engage and communicate both with the Malay voters that are not with us and also our core urban Malay and non-Malay support that has been our staunch supporters all this while?
Because some would say that the party is shedding some of its progressive and egalitarian focus in order to win that support, especially in the Malay heartland, where PN, of course, has made strong inroads both in state and general elections. After all, it's like a complete wipeout in Terengganu, Kedah, Kelantan and Perlis. So is that really the case? Do you...
I think I don't believe that it's an issue about selling our soul or changing ourselves. Because if you remember, Keadilan has always been a progressive multiracial party, but with majority Malay leadership. Okay, and this it's not the first time we had Dato' On with party, IMP. We had Gerakan in the past, but Keadilan is the first that has become this successful. So I think, when we emerged, although we are multiracial, we were embraced by the Malays because it was reformasi. The non-Malays did not support us. Then, when Datuk Sri Anwar criticised the NEP, and when UMNO became more right-wing, and then, we got the non-Malay support. And then slowly we built up the urban Malay support. So, for us, support will come and go.
Okay.
But we have to remember, we were founded as a multiracial party, but which is deeply rooted in the Malaysian context. I mean, we have to reflect if we are not convincing the Malays. We need to reflect that. But, obviously, it cannot come at the cost of selling ourselves. And we've lost support before. Just a short example is no one thought that we could survive being divorced from PAS. When I contested in 2008 in Sri Setia, 70% of my machinery were PAS machinery. Right? But we took that difficult decision when Anwar was in jail at that time, when we had pretty much nothing, and people thought that 1MDB was a shoe-in, right? But we decided that we have to break with PAS because we felt that the line was crossed.
Okay, but how then does PKR, which you say is of course a multiracial party, repair the current state of racial and religious polarization, which is evident even from the electoral data we see from state elections?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to be confident in our values. We cannot, and I think this is something, for example, that Rafizi has said before, we cannot compete with PAS and Bersatu in terms of Islam or Malay, what do you call that, politics, right? That has never been our strength. And I think, I mean, it's like the Democrats. You cannot be more right-wing than the Republican.
Yeah.
Okay? But we do acknowledge that, for example, there is a sense of insecurity out there, both among Malays and non-Malays. But to address it, I think we have always taken a lot of focus, one, on values, on dialogue, but also in terms of social justice. Because I would argue, you find a 50% support for the opposition today among the Malays. I mean, whatever lah. I mean, you can give a number, but I would say that half of it, I mean, they're really, whatever you do is just because they believe that the opposition is better at championing Malay and Islamic issues. But the other half, they have that racial or religious insecurity, but it may be rooted in cost of living are going higher. So they blame, quote unquote, the Chinese businessman or outside forces or whatever they want to blame. A boogeyman, right?
Yeah.
So if you address the socio-economic issues, I'm not saying that this half will immediately be liberals, but they may, they may reach out and they say they're floating voters.
Now, I want to shift into talking about the performance of this Madani government, of which, of course, PKR is in the driving seat. Some would say, you're a bit slow in terms of rolling out all the promises, all the reforms that was required. And we've got a whole host of structural issues, of course, whether it's economic, political, or even the current state of religious and racial harmony that we face, right? I mean, they're old figures, but Merdeka survey shows that after 1 year in office, 50% gave our Prime Minister an approval rating, 50% actually positive approval rating versus 68% in December 2022. So is PKR taking note of this? I mean, are they going to make the tough decisions that they have to, even though it might cost them losing power in GE16?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do. I mean, as always, just like you're in a marriage, you're in a relationship. Similarly, for politicians, you always have a honeymoon period where everything is perfect and hunky-dory.
Okay, that honeymoon is long over, clearly.
So I'm putting context. So you can't sustain if you get 68% at the beginning of your start. It won't be 68% flat.
Yeah.
Right. You would expect some reduction, in the first year or so, and that is precisely because, we have to bear in mind we did not come in with a majority, right? This is a post-election coalition, so. But we immediately went for the difficult decisions. I mean, I can say for my portfolio. What did we do? We immediately, within 2 weeks, I was just trying to understand my brief, and we started with increasing the electric tariffs, tremendously. And then within the next 3 cycles that I worked on, the next 2 cycles, we started on the households as well.
Yeah.
And water, Pahang, for example, domestic water was never increased for 40 years. We introduced, one of the last things I did was the tariff setting mechanism where every state is allowed to increase tariffs.
So there is some credit. I'm not saying that, it's not been all negative. But if we look at some of the really important reform that needs to take place, for example, subsidy rationalization, we look at the fiscal situation of the country, everything seems to be moving at a too slow a pace, or maybe even some of these labor policies that we need to roll out, or maybe a reform of the education system. Why isn't that happening fast enough? Or at the end of the day, is PKR ready to be that brave party to do the right thing for the country, even if it means not being in government again?
Well, I don't think that any party would want to do reforms and then lose power,
But some are clearly not going to pay a price, right? Sometimes.
Obviously. I mean, or not, we wouldn't have touched on the subsidies, right? We just have continued. But we did. And what are we doing next? I mean, because we are shifting towards targeted subsidies. That's why government is pushing on PADU.
Okay.
Because we need to have the data. It can't be in silos. So that's why, we've started on that. What do you call that? So next will be petrol subsidies. That's the big one. Last year, we saved 4.6 billion ringgit on electric subsidies.
Okay, but what about rolling back some of this legislation which is not popular, like the Sedition Act, for example?
Yeah,
or this flip-flopping when it comes to the citizenship bill,
Sure. Okay, I'll address that. Sedition Act, yes, PH has a strong position on that. But what about Barisan Nasional? What about GPS? This is not a keadilan government. This is not a PH government.
So is this where the compromises come in?
We have to discuss. You have to convince people who are so convinced that we need the Sedition Act, for example, that we need something else. So I think it's not as simple because there's no consensus on this. Citizenship, right? Yes, I mean, we heard the comments. I went to one viewing of Abang Adik and the NGOs were there. And obviously, I can't say much. It's not my brief. But I did address when it was asked to me. And, a lot of ministers gave in their views and they engaged with the civil society. And eventually, we did adjust the position on the citizenship issue. I know not to the entire satisfaction of all NGOs, but, we are not just beholden to one group.
Okay.
We need to also be able to sell this to the state governments, to the other side of the fence as well.
Okay, I want to spend some time looking at PKR itself. It's a party with 1.16 million members, second largest after UMNO at 3.39 million. But how do you intend to grow your membership base today? Because that's a source of grassroots support and funding. Who's joining? In the past, it was idealists like yourself who want to change Malaysia. But today, who are the members?
Well, I mean, I think, it's always a reality that when you're in power, then there will be more attraction for people to join the party, for better or for worse. I mean, that's a reality. But what I would say is, what we have is that people who are joining the party is that people who want to make a difference, people who believe that multiracial politics is the way forward for Malaysia. And people who believe in social justice. So, and we continue to attract a very strong multiracial group of membership. Half of our membership are Malays, 25% are Indians, 15% are Chinese, and then you have about 10% are the Sabah Sarawak Bumis. So, it's a mix that no other party can speak of.
But at the same time, I do notice that in terms of turnout when it comes to party elections, it's quite low. It's only 15 to 20%. So some of analysts argue that, the party has this unfulfilled potential as so many members aren't really motivated because the threshold to join is really low. So how do you get them motivated? You might have the numbers, but you might not have the worker bees.
So, party elections is for those who are really into the party politics per se. There are a lot of people, like in Setiawangsa, I think the turnout was about 1,000. We have 5,000 members in Setiawangsa, turnout was 1,000. But I get a lot more during general elections who come in as pacha, who come in as volunteers, as donors. Because for them, this is just a family contest.
Yeah.
For them, they don't really care whether it's Nik Nazmi or when, I was up against Aflin Shauki. But when it comes to elections, they want to see Keadilan or PH win. So they come then. Right, so for me, I think, and because we are the only major party that has one member, one vote.
Yes.
So obviously, when you see, because some other parties they will have delegates, so that is more of a selected group of really dedicated party members. But for us, we are the most democratic in that sense. So the motivation is slightly different.
Which is also why your party elections take up to almost 3 months to be completed.
Yeah. I mean, but 1 million members, yeah.
What are the plans in terms of grooming a new batch of leaders? I mean, there seems to be a dearth of new leaders after personalities like Nurul Izzah, yourself, and Rafizi Ramli. I struggle to name new leaders.
Well, I think first and foremost, I think it's important to note, we've been around for a long time. I mean, I don't think we're that old relative to other parties, but we've been around a long time. It's because the party has been giving faith to young leaders.
Yeah.
So I've been, what do you call that? You have the Deputy President Rafizi. He is 47. Izzah is 43. I'm 42. Then Amiruddin, the MB of Selangor, is 44.
Okay, kind of babies in the Malaysian politics scene.
But then you go to the next Chang Likang of 44 as well. You go to the next batch, right? Now the 4 youngest MPs in the Dewan Rakyat. The youngest is Dr. Taufik Sungai Petani. After that, it's Prabha, who was the youngest in the last election as well. And then you have Syed Saddiq, and then you have CM Chew from Miri. 3 of these, except for Syed Saddiq, obviously, 3 of them are from Keadilan. So I think, again, and you have a Malay, you have a Chinese, you have an Indian, and you have one from Sarawak, right? So I think we are not short of talent. But I do agree that we can't be complacent because previously, the party was very thin. It was easy. I came in, Amiruddin came in because there were not enough candidates. So today the situation is different.
So does it mean that, the party is beyond just being tied or being based around the cult personality of Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim? Does it have a rallying cause beyond him though?
Well, I mean, I think if we were purely fighting for Anwar's freedom or Anwar per se, a lot of people would have left, and some have. I mean, we have the Azmins, we have the Ezams, we have the. There's so many who have left the party before,
I was supposed
right?
You consider that some of your political failures within the party, right?
You come. Those things happen in any political party. But what I'm saying is, we have grown beyond that. People know what we stand for better or for worse. We are established across the state governments and all that. I don't think, obviously Anwar Ibrahim is a big factor in Malaysian politics. He's been there. He's been persistent. He has the grit. But, you can't attribute it to him alone. It's about the party as a cause that has been able to sustain as a truly multiracial and national party.
So is there going to be a different cause for let's say the next decade of PKR as you celebrate your 25th anniversary? Is there going to be an inward-looking moment to decide what should the future be?
Well, first and foremost, not every party has this, but in Keadilan, there is a term limit for the president, which is 3 terms.
Yeah.
Right? So for Datuk Sri Anwar, he's into his 2nd term. He still has ample time. Even to go into his, hopefully, to be able to go for 2nd term as Prime Minister and party president. But it also means that, there's that check in the party constitution against someone being there forever. Some has. But so I think that's where for us, that time will come. And we are not scared of having to cross that point of time because, again, you have, if you're talking about, you have Rafizi, you have Saifuddin.
So, is he going to be is it a foregone conclusion that he's heir apparent to Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim?
No one. This is a democratic party, right? So, but you have Rafizi, you have Saifuddin. Next in line, you have the VIPs, Amiruddin, Chang Likang, myself. If you want to look at that, there's Nurul Izzah. So, I think we are not short of that. And I think that's a good problem to have. You have some people you see in certain parties where it's very, very just old people. I mean, old
and
men.
Impossible to move them.
Yes, and I think we fortunately we don't have that problem.
So will you be putting your hat into the ring for the deputy president post at the next PKR elections in 2025 then? Because that's always seen to be the next step to party leadership.
Well, no, I mean, I think first and foremost, like I said, Anwar still has one more term as president. And I would think, I mean, if you ask me, my predictions are Rafizi would be standing in as well as deputy, so I will have to decide about my position as vice president, but it won't go beyond that.
On that note, thank you for your time today on the Breakfast Grille to discuss PKR's future as a political party after 25 years. Was its Vice President Nik Nazmi, Nik Ahmad, who is also Minister of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability. I'm Wong Shao Ning, BFM 89.9.